Let's take a look at Federalist 82 by Hamilton. He continues talking about the judicial branch, the judiciary, and basically he talks about what he says the partition of judicial authority between different courts and their relations to each other. Anti-Federalists were very worried that state courts would lose their authority, and the federal court, the national court, will gradually end up deciding every case, whether it's a small state case, small county case, anything that's supposed to go in front of a judge, that will end up in front of a federal judge rather than a state judge. And they were thinking that this would definitely be the end of liberty as they knew it, because back then they were very attached to the local and state and local county, town, and state governments. They would consider a federal government, a national government, so distant from them, being a system that could be really oppressive and take their freedoms away, as Britain had ended up doing. This is the way at least they thought. And they were having major problems with some of the provisions of the Constitution, and Hamilton has been defending these provisions. And in these past few papers, starting with Federalist 78, he's been talking about why anti-federalists are making a mistake for thinking that. And here he's going to also talk about what is concurrent jurisdiction. In other words, there are parts of the provisions of the Constitution that gives the authority, the judicial authority, only and only to the federal government. But there are areas that there's concurrent governance. In other words, both the state as well as the national government, the federal government, have concurrent rule. They have concurrent authority. They have authority at the same time. So he talks about those, this issue, this paper, and he makes references to Federalists number 32 and Federalist number 37. And he reminds people that we're establishing a great republic. This is something that has not been done before. And he uses some lines, I believe, from Federalist 37 by Madison that says, time can only mature and perfect so compound a system, a federal system, that you have dual sovereignty, shared sovereignty. So he says, only time only can mature and perfect so compound a system and can liquidate the meaning of all the parts and can adjust them to each other in a harmonious and consistent whole. So it's going to be taking a while for us to get a feel of everything. It's something that we need to work on. Everything is not 100% black and white just because we've written a constitution. So this thing is going to, this great experiment in republicanism for the first time on a vast scale, is going to take time for this federal system to get on the right footing. So he's asking for patience. He's asking for virtue in the citizens as well as those who are going to administer the government. And he tells the anti-federalists that the power of state authority, state courts, is not going to be diminished. Only those things in the Constitution that exclusively provides for the federal government to rule on everything, to have the authority of deciding on cases. He says only those cases will be in the hands of the federal government. The rest of them will be in the hands of the state. I showed you a few books starting Federalist number 78, and I said these books will help you understand Federalist Papers much better. So definitely it's good to refer to those if you can. And then, of course, as you can see, I've put C-SPAN up here again, Library of Congress, teachingamericanhistory.org, National Constitution Center, National Archives. These are great resources for you. So let me start reading a few pages out of this, a few lines out of this Federalist 82. And the erection of a new government. This is as right as at the start, he says we were going to establish a new government. We're going to found a new system. Whatever care or wisdom may distinguish the work cannot fail to originate questions of intricacy and nicety. Regardless of how good of a job you've done, questions will arise. People will ask why. Why have you done this? Why have you written this provision in the Constitution? And these may, in a particular manner, be expected to flow from the establishment of a constitution founded upon the total or partial incorporation of a number of distinct sovereignties. It's time only that can mature and perfect so compound a system, can liquidate the meaning of all the parts, and can adjust them to each other in a harmonious and consistent whole. So see, right off the bat, he acknowledges that it's going to take a while for the federal system to take shape, to really work some of those details out, and for it to start working properly. The next paragraph says, such questions, accordingly, have arisen upon the plan proposed by the convention, and particularly concerning the Judiciary Department. The principal of these respect the situation of the state courts in regard to those causes which are to be submitted to federal jurisdiction. So the principal of these, he says, one of the main questions that have come up is this. Is this to be exclusive, or are those courts to possess a concurrent jurisdiction? If the latter, in what relation will they stand to the national tribunals? These are inquiries which we meet with in the mouths of men of sense, and which are certainly entitled to attention. So he says there are some critics of us that are very sensible people. These are good people that have these questions, and these questions have to be answered. Next paragraph, the principles established in a former paper teaches us that the states will retain all pre-existing authorities which may not be exclusively delegated to the federal head.